Story 1. During the annual hunting season, I make it a point to journey up to the wilderness of Maine, opting for an Airbnb rental due to the impracticality of owning a property solely for this purpose. Being an occasional hunter, purchasing a property outright seemed financially unwise for me, so a weekend rental serves my needs perfectly. Moreover, lacking expertise in the field, I've been gradually honing my skills ever since my uncle's health began deteriorating a few years back, rendering him unable to accompany me. Last year, in 2022, marked my most recent solo hunting expedition. Arriving late on a Friday night after wrapping up work, I navigated the desolate dirt road leading to my secluded Airbnb near the national park. The utter darkness and eerie silence of the night hinted at the isolation of my surroundings. As instructed by the owner, I found the key discreetly stashed beneath the doormat, allowing me to settle into the cozy one-bedroom cabin. The chill of November necessitated cranking up the heat, a gesture thankfully already taken care of by the thoughtful owner. With amenities like cable and Wi-Fi at my disposal, I set an early alarm, knowing dawn offered the best chance for spotting deer or, if luck favored, a moose. The next morning, I wasted no time venturing into unfamiliar territory, seeking refuge behind a cluster of fallen trees. Suddenly, a voice shattered the silence, sending a jolt of fear through me. A man, seemingly angered by my presence, confronted me about the restricted hunting zone. Oblivious to this rule, I attempted to reason with him, only to realize he had been monitoring my movements. Feeling unsettled, I retreated to the cabin, only to discover upon my return that the door was unlocked, a detail I distinctly remembered securing. A sense of unease washed over me as I surveyed the interior, noting subtle disruptions that hinted at unwelcome intrusion. After hastily devouring a meal from a nearby village, I succumbed to exhaustion, dozing off on the couch while contemplating the odd occurrences. Later, as dusk settled, I resumed my hunt, though luck remained elusive, mirroring my earlier misfortune. Returning to the cabin, I grappled with a growing sense of unease, amplified by the sight of the closet door slightly ajar. Armed with caution, I confronted the intruder, whose sinister grin confirmed my worst fears. With trembling hands, I dialed 911, relief flooding over me as law enforcement arrived to apprehend the trespasser. The aftermath revealed little clarity, leaving me to ponder the unsettling events of that fateful night. Despite the host's assurance regarding the unlocked door, doubts lingered, overshadowing what should have been a routine hunting trip. Yet, I couldn't help but feel gratitude for the presence of my firearm, a vital tool in neutralizing the imminent threat. Story 2. Couldn't sleep after I read this one. Now every creak in the house feels like a ghost tapping me on the shoulder, reminding me of my cowardice. I was just 14 when this unsettling incident occurred. It marked my inaugural year of deer hunting with my family, accompanied by my father and cousin. Our hunting setup was quite spread out. My blind lay 2 miles south of my father's stand, which in turn was 9 miles southwest of our camp. Utilizing a four-wheeler, we traversed about 100 yards from my father's stand, leaving me with a considerable distance to trek back to my own blind. Living in northern Michigan, the onset of darkness during winter arrives swiftly and early. It was approximately 4 p.m. when I began to feel the chill seeping into my bones, prompting me to seal up my tent. Armed with a 243 rifle, adorned with a pink camo cover, and strapped to my back, I tidied up my blind, stowing garbage away in a nearby bucket. As I disposed of the trash, the rustle of leaves caught my attention, momentarily raising hopes of spotting a deer. However, after a brief moment of scrutiny, I dismissed it as likely the antics of a squirrel or bird. Disheartened, I closed up my blind and made my way towards my father's location. Stepping out of my blind, I noticed a fresh trail, distinct from the usual tracks left by smaller animals or deer. Alarm bells rang in my mind. The breadth of the path hinted at something larger, perhaps a bear or wolf. With growing trepidation and the encroaching darkness intensifying my anxiety, I hastened my pace towards my father's stand, roughly a mile away. Suddenly, a spine-chilling sound pierced the air, reminiscent of a bear's roar intertwined with the agony of a human being. Fear propelled me into a frenzied sprint, my heavy boots and hunting gear weighing me down. Yet, the primal instinct for survival pushed me forward, heedless of the burden. Moments later, the unearthly noise echoed once more, louder and closer this time, shrouded in the darkness illuminated only by the faint moonlight. Glancing back with my headlamp, I beheld a towering figure, around 10 feet tall, slender yet imposing. Without a second thought, I broke into a desperate run, fumbling to free my gun from its strap. Running aimlessly, I found myself on Rabbit Road, a familiar path linking our camp to the hunting area entrance. Sprinting until I reached the safety of my cabin, I dared to glance back once more, sighting the enigmatic figure in the distance, still looming ominously. Exhaustion overwhelmed me as I reached the cabin steps, retching uncontrollably before collapsing in a heap. I awoke to the sound of my father's arrival on his four-wheeler, rushing to embrace him, tears streaming down my face as I recounted the harrowing ordeal. Initially met with skepticism, my father's demeanor softened as he recognized the genuine fear etched upon my face. Though some attempted to rationalize the experience as a bear encounter or mere hallucination, I remained steadfast in my conviction of what I had witnessed. Today, older and wiser, I never venture into the wilderness alone, opting for the reassurance of companionship and a larger firearm. This encounter remains etched as the most terrifying experience of my life, a reminder of the unpredictable and unforgiving nature of the wild. Story 3. It was a Friday evening, and as I returned home from school at the tender age of 13, my heart brimmed with excitement for our upcoming hunting trip. Our destination, the beloved ranch nestled in Alice, Texas, a place I'd cherished since the age of 4. Memories of past visits flooded my mind, each one etched with the joy of camaraderie and the thrill of the hunt. Accompanied by my grandpa and dad, our hunting party was set to join a few others, including the ranch owner's family. Packed and prepared, we embarked on our journey, eager for the start of deer season, my personal favorite. There's a certain magic in the air when you lock eyes with a majestic deer, and the crack of a shot resonates through the tranquil wilderness. Despite dissenting voices condemning hunting, I held firm in my belief that if the animal is consumed, its sacrifice is justified. Arriving at the ranch around 10 p.m., darkness enveloped the sprawling 300-acre expanse. Our campsite, a rustic shack reminiscent of a modest bedroom, provided basic amenities amidst the wild. Though equipped with electricity, a past encounter with a snake shed prompted us to opt for the safety of a tent instead. Surrounded by dense woods, with a small field lying ahead perfect for dove hunting, our campfire tales and laughter were abruptly interrupted by a spine-chilling scream. The eerie sound, akin to a twisted blend of human and beast, echoed through the night, sending shivers down our spines. Panic-stricken, we exchanged alarmed glances, the fear palpable in our collective silence. Summoning courage, the ranch owner and a family member volunteered to investigate. Despite his age, the ranch owner's resolve remained unshaken as we embarked on a reconnaissance mission aboard my grandpa's ATV. Yet, our efforts yielded no answers, leaving us grappling with lingering unease. Haunted by the disturbing scream, I found myself gripped by fear, reluctant to venture into the darkness alone. As dawn approached, I braced myself for the solitary climb to the blind, armed with a sense of dread that refused to dissipate. Settling into the blind, The darkness lingered longer than usual, casting shadows of doubt upon my surroundings. Peering through a night vision scope, my anticipation turned to terror as I beheld a figure emerging from the shadows, its form distorted yet unmistakably human. Frozen in disbelief, I watched as it turned towards me, its gaze piercing through the darkness. Then, with a gut-wrenching scream that pierced the stillness, I was consumed by a primal fear unlike anything I'd ever experienced. Summoning every ounce of courage, I unleashed a barrage of gunfire, desperate to repel the encroaching threat. Yet, as the echoes faded, I was left with a chilling realization the creature had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only unanswered questions and a lingering sense of dread. In the aftermath, amidst a flurry of calls and messages, I shared my harrowing encounter with my dad and grandpa, finding solace in their shared experience. Yet, despite our resolve to return to the hunt, the once tranquil sanctuary of the ranch now held an air of uncertainty. Haunted by the inexplicable events of that night, I now tread cautiously, always accompanied by my dad, wary of the unknown lurking in the shadows. Though the creature remains a mystery, its resilience in the face of gunfire serves as a sobering reminder of the dangers that lurk beyond the safety of our campfire. Story 4. Couldn't close my eyes after this one. Now I'm just another character in a horror movie, too scared to leave the safety of my bed. In the autumn of 1986, at the age of 23, I found myself venturing into the familiar embrace of the woods. The wilderness had always been my sanctuary, a place of solace away from life's burdens. Despite tales of Bigfoot or skinwalkers, I'd never encountered anything beyond the ordinary in those untamed realms. As a lineman in a small Kentucky town, I'd witnessed my fair share of craziness, but always within the confines of civilization. Hunting and fishing were my sole pastimes, cherished escapes into the tranquility of nature. In those days, securing a prime hunting spot was as simple as seeking permission from landowners eager to cull the deer population wreaking havoc on their crops. Coal country scars from decades of strip mining had left vast expanses of land open for hunting, including the area known as Coon Ridge, a remote landscape of rolling farmland and dense woods. On a crisp October afternoon, I left work promptly at 4, eager to don my camo for the bow season opener. Coon Ridge held a special place in my heart, its rugged terrain promising adventure amidst the tranquility of the wilderness. Opting to forego my three-wheeler, I embarked on the trek to my chosen hunting spot, laden with gear and anticipation. Navigating through the fields, I reached the edge of the forest, the looming canopy a welcome sight. As I ascended a chosen tree with my climbing stand, the world below faded into insignificance. With dusk approaching, I settled into my perch, bow at the ready, a silent observer amidst the woodland symphony. As darkness descended, I prepared to descend from my lofty vantage point when the rustle of approaching footsteps halted my movements. Straining to discern the source, I remained still, the nocturnal landscape illuminated by the pale glow of the full moon. Suddenly, the unmistakable sound of a startled deer shattered the stillness, echoing through the trees. Hastily securing my gear, I descended, only to find myself disoriented amidst the dense undergrowth. Despite my attempts to retrace my steps, the familiar trail eluded me, casting me deeper into the labyrinth of the night. Guided by the moon's gentle glow, I pressed on, emerging from the thicket into the moonlit expanse of the field. Yet, my relief was short-lived as a chilling sight greeted me, a figure, imposing and enigmatic, blocking my path. Summoning courage, I approached, arrow in hand, my heart racing with apprehension. Yet, as I drew closer, the figure resolved into two silent sentinels, their presence unnerving in the desolate night. Though I addressed them, my words met only silence, their unmoving forms a silent testament to the eerie stillness of the night. With each step, my unease grew, the inexplicable encounter haunting my thoughts long after I reached the safety of my truck. The following day, as I inspected my tires, each punctured by roofing nails, the unsettling reality of those woods sank in. Someone or something had tampered with my vehicle, leaving me to ponder the mysteries lurking in the shadows. From that day forth, the woods of Coon Ridge held a foreboding air, a silent witness to the inexplicable events that transpired within its depths. No longer venturing alone, I remained vigilant, wary of the unseen forces that lurked beyond the veil of darkness. Story 5. When I was 13, my group of troublemaking friends often found ourselves engaging in mischievous antics on Saturday nights. This was a decade ago, back when we all lived on the same block in a typical suburban neighborhood. Let's call my buddies Mark, James, and Matt. Mark and James were usually the ones brave enough to ring doorbells, while Matt and I quickly found hiding spots nearby. That particular night, we hit about 5 or 6 houses, delighting in the reactions of the unsuspecting residents. Most of them just muttered a few choice words before retreating indoors, but one threatened to call the cops after our second visit, prompting us to hightail it down the street to the next block. In those days, the neighborhood still had patches of woods where houses now stand. The next block over was a bit rougher, with some unkempt houses and trees providing ample hiding spots. The first house we targeted on that block was a bit rundown, with overgrown grass and a beat-up car in the driveway. Mark volunteered to ring the bell, and barely made it across the street before a burly man answered the door, fuming with anger. Undeterred, Mark waited a few minutes before attempting another ring, but this time, the man emerged with a rifle in hand, sending a chill down our spines. We crouched low, hoping to avoid detection as the man scanned his yard and then turned his gaze toward the woods where we hid. It felt like an eternity before he finally went back inside, only to reappear at the window, staring in our direction like a sentinel. When Mark made another attempt at the door, the tension became palpable. We held our breath, frozen with fear, until Mark's voice broke the silence, urging us to run. We sprinted like our lives depended on it, the man hot on our heels until we reached safety several blocks away. Mark later explained that he had spotted the man sneaking into the woods with his gun, prompting his warning. We decided not to report the incident, preferring to keep it among ourselves. Thankfully, the house was far enough away that we never had to pass it again, but the memory of that night still sends shivers down my spine. Story 6. I dwelled in what I can only describe as a house of eerie occurrences for a few weeks. As a college student, my parents generously provided a place for me to stay. At first, the house seemed perfectly ordinary, nothing extravagant, but it suited my needs. However, my contentment didn't last long as peculiar events began to unfold. It all began on a rainy Saturday when I was lounging in the living room, watching TV. Suddenly, I heard a scraping noise emanating from the floor. I dismissed it initially, attributing it to perhaps an animal finding its way inside. But as the day wore on and the rain persisted, more strange incidents unfolded. Later, while still glued to the TV, I thought I heard a noise originating from the kitchen. Armed with nothing but a pillow, I cautiously ventured into the dimly lit room, only to find a box of Cheerios spilled across the floor, seemingly of their own accord. As I bent down to clean up the mess, I heard a creak, like someone stepping on a loose floorboard near the kitchen table. Yet, when I glanced around, the room was empty, sending a shiver down my spine. Feeling unnerved, I returned to the TV, finding solace in the increasingly loud thunder outside. However, my peace was short-lived as I unexpectedly dozed off, only to be jolted awake by a loud noise that seemed to originate from downstairs. Hastily, I retired to bed, eager to escape the unsettling atmosphere downstairs. The following day passed without incident. but it wasn't long before the eerie happenings resumed on the next rainy day. Awakening with a sickening hangover-like sensation, I remained confined to my bed, the gloomy weather exacerbating my discomfort. Midday, I heard peculiar sounds emanating from the attic above my bedroom. Summoning the courage to investigate, despite my queasiness, I armed myself with a baseball bat and ascended to the attic. Yet, aside from a few dusty boxes, I found no evidence of living beings producing the noises. I hurriedly descended the stairs, unnerved by the oppressive atmosphere of the attic. That night, as I lay in bed, feeling unwell, the sound of a thud from the attic once again pierced the silence. Determined to confront whatever lurked above, I ascended to the attic, this time met with the eerie sound of a child's laughter in the darkness. Overwhelmed by fear, I fled the house, seeking refuge elsewhere. In the midst of the chilling encounter, I reached out to my father, who promptly came to my aid. Together, we packed up my belongings and vacated the house, my parents sensing the genuine fear that gripped me. To this day, I am convinced that the inexplicable events I witnessed in that house were of a paranormal nature. Story 7. During my early 20s, I took up a short-lived job as a housekeeper for an elderly woman named Eleanor. She resided in a sizable yet antiquated house nestled within a property that, with proper care, could have been stunning. However, neglect seemed to be the theme of her domain. The house, constructed mainly of wood, exuded a somber aura, exacerbated by the perpetual dimness within. Eleanor had a peculiar habit of keeping certain rooms shrouded in darkness, a practice I found baffling. Occasionally, she would illuminate the space with candles, further enhancing the house's antiquated ambience. Moreover, the creaky wooden floors added to the eerie atmosphere, amplifying every step taken within. Eleanor, aged around 70, often delegated physical tasks to me, tasks that her advancing age prevented her from accomplishing efficiently. These chores ranged from sweeping and dusting to dishwashing and sorting mail. However, one particular weekend, Eleanor requested that I stay overnight at her residence. With 4 bedrooms at her disposal and no other occupants, I obliged without hesitation. The unsettling events unfolded over the course of a Friday and the subsequent Saturday. On arriving that Friday, I exchanged few words with Eleanor before depositing my belongings in the designated bedroom. However, as I turned to leave, I was startled to find Eleanor standing ominously by the doorway. Her eerie demeanor sent a shiver down my spine as she instructed me to clean the bedroom promptly. Subsequently, she vanished upstairs, leaving me to tidy the house unaccompanied. Throughout the day, I could hear her faint footsteps pacing back and forth overhead, their purpose unbeknownst to me. Curiously, Eleanor exhibited an inexplicable aversion to her basement, sternly forbidding me from venturing there. As night descended, I retired to bed early, only to be plagued by the discomfort of the dilapidated mattress. Hours passed peacefully until I was roused from my slumber by the sound of footsteps echoing outside my room. Assuming it was Eleanor, I dismissed the disturbance until her lingering presence outside my door sent a chill down my spine. The subsequent silence was shattered by the unmistakable creak of the basement door, followed by heavy footsteps ascending the stairs. Fearing the worst, I feigned sleep as Eleanor entered my room briefly before retreating. Consumed by dread, I resolved to investigate the forbidden basement, driven by an overwhelming urge to uncover its secrets. Descending the stairs, I was met with a chilling sight: 2 decaying corpses seated in old chairs, adorned with wigs. Shocked and repulsed, I barely had time to process the gruesome scene before I heard Eleanor's footsteps approaching from above. With no time to spare, I concealed myself behind a couch as Eleanor descended into the basement, brandishing a kitchen knife. Her sinister whisper sent shivers down my spine as I fled, her enraged pursuit driving me to escape the house in a panic. Retreating to the safety of my car, I fled the property, vowing never to return. To this day, the haunting memory of Eleanor and her macabre secrets lingers, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurks within seemingly ordinary facades.